In 1908, Behrens revealed his essentially conservative nature in an essay entitled Was ist monumentale Kunst? What is monumental art? Where he defines such art as an expression of the dominant power group in any given epoch. While accepting the ascendancy of science and industry with pessimistic resignation, Behrens sought to bring the factory under the rubric of the farm, to restore to factory production that sense of common purpose innate in agriculture, a feeling for which the newly urbanized, semi-skilled labor of Berlin would supposedly still have a certain nostalgia. On joining AEG, Behrens was confronted with the brute fact of industrial power. In exchange for his youthful visions of revitalizing German cultural life through an elaborately staged mystic ritual, he had to accept the industrialization as the manifest destiny of the German nation, or as he conceived of it, as the composite issue of Zeitgeist and Volkgeist, to which it was his duty as an artist to give form. Thus, the turbine factory that he built for AEG in 1909 was a deliberate reification of industry as one vital rhythm of modern life. Behrens' turbine factory was a conscious work of art, a temple to industrial power. It then became clear to me that it was not the task of architecture to invent form. I tried to understand what that task was. I asked Peter Behrens, but he could not give me an answer. He did not ask that question. Since we knew that it was a question of truth, we tried to find out what truth really was. We were very delighted to find a definition of truth by St. Thomas Aquinas. Adequatio intellectus et rei, or as a modern philosopher expresses it in the language of today, truth is the significance of fact. I must make it clear that in the English language you call everything structure. In Europe we don't. We call a shack and not a structure. By structure we have a philosophical idea. The structure is the whole from top to bottom, to the last detail with the same ideas. That is what we call structure. In my project for a skyscraper at the Friedrichstrasse station in Berlin, I used a prismatic form which seemed to me to fit best the triangular site of the building. I placed the glass walls at slight angles to each other to avoid the monotony of overlarge glass surfaces. I discovered by working with actual glass models that the important thing is the play of reflections and not the effect of light and shadows as in ordinary buildings. Ready for it? You want it again? No, good. Okay. Yeah. The principles of the Bauhaus Proclamation of 1919 had been anticipated in Bruno Taut's architectural program for the Arbeitsrat für Kunst, published late in 1918. Taut argued that a new cultural unity could be attained only through a new art of building, wherein each separate discipline would contribute to the final form. At this point, he wrote, there will be no boundaries between crafts, sculpture, and painting. All will be one, architecture. Where the one called on all fine artists to reject salon art and to return to the crafts in the service of a metaphorical cathedral of the future, to go into buildings, endow them with fairy tales, and build in fantasy without regard for technical difficulty. The other exhorted, let us create a new guild of craftsmen without the class distinctions which raise an arrogant barrier between craftsman and artist. Together, let us conceive and create the new building of the future, which will embrace architecture and sculpture and painting in one unity, and which will rise one day toward heaven from the hands of a million workers, like the crystal symbol of a new faith.
My name is Werner Möller. I'm a co-worker here of the Bauhaus Foundation. I'm busy with exhibitions, publications, and so on. Now, to tell something about the story about the Bauhaus and its history is really complicated. It's not so easy to give a right answer what the Bauhaus really was. Today we have a look back at the Bauhaus. It's like, it's a question, is Bauhaus a style? That's the point how we look today at Bauhaus. But the Bauhaus never want to be a style. This was one of its principles. They want to be a school in good relation to the practice world. Please do not try to find here too much new pieces. It's like an industrial building, and this is also part of this method, like this art and technical unity from Gropius. You see, it looks like an industrial building, but it was an education building. But the Bauhaus was a school. It was the first school which tried to find methods to educate modern principles of architecture, design and art. Gropius, for the whole scene thought or knows that Gropius, like it shows here for Dessau, more in this way that it was more like a monastery here, not to be in a big city, but nearby a big city or in between big cities, because it is different reasons. One is you have more concentration here. The people could not go out and have lots of fun and so on. And the other point is to be a light tower. The Bauhaus was founded in the end after this First World War. All the people are shocked what is possible with the inhumanity of this military stuff of the First World War, and they try to start new, found a new way of society, and so they glance back to the Middle Age. In the symbol on the first program of the Bauhaus, you found a cathedral of the medieval periods as a sign, as a center of society, that all of the designers could work together on a piece for the society, like the cathedral. This was a little bit a romantic point, so they get first absolutely in distance to the industry. Before the First World War, they start in connection to work designers with the industry. It was the so-called Deutscher Werkbund. And then they quit after the First World War with the Bauhaus, with Walter Gropius, and start again. But it doesn't work, because you could not go back behind the steps you have done. And the industry was necessary to bring for the mass of the public the best products. And so you see here, one of the results of this time is the Bauhaus building. They want to find a new relation between art and technique. They named it the Cathedral of a Social Movement. Not the socialistic movement, a social movement. And the light comes not in the cathedral like in the medieval, it goes out. And to have a new point, a new center for the designers to start after this inhumanity of this First World War with a new task, new topics for the future. To understand how the Bauhaus will maybe find methods of education is also very complicated to describe, because it was an experiment. So we have a combination between a construction worker, specialist and an artist. Furniture maker, for example, together with Paul Klee or others. This was the idea, and it was very important to understand this, and this was continuous in fact of the Bauhaus, was the idea of the workshop. The first program I will show you with my fingers, which is also important to understand how this building is organized. Was the first program of the building was a circle, designed from Gropius. The first ring of the circle was a preliminary course. It was also new. People coming from outside have to go through this preliminary course half a year. They try to train different materials, lost the history in the back, and try to experiment like with pieces of garbage together with pieces of glass and colors and so on. Very bizarre things will be happening, but it was to clean your mind and found a new relation to the shape of the things. And then you go into the workshop, and the workshops are organized following the materials. One was glass, one was wood, one was metal, one was ceramic, and in the center was the so-called Bau. Bau, that means not architecture. It means, like I talked to you about this question of the Bauhütte, that all the things come together. You go from the outside to the center. This was the idea. And if you really look here on the building, the floor is organized like these principles. Here in front of the workshop wing, you see in the room above, the 2-1 was the preliminary course. Behind was the workshop. And the architecture for the Bau was situated there in the middle of the building, in the room above the director. And so you have to see the organization follows also the architectural principles of the building.